Discovery in video games have been an important aspect of them ever since the early days of gaming's existence. From finding warp zones in the original Super Mario Bros. To locating hidden shrines in the more modern Legend of Zelda games, being able to discover these sorts of things on your own helps make for a much more enjoyable and memorable experience. But perhaps the game that does exploration and learning better than any other is an indie game simply known as Spelunky, a roguelike platformer that hides underneath its simple appearance a game experience that is truly like no other. Today, in honor of the series' 15th anniversary, I'd like to take a look at the game and how I think it perfects the idea of discovery in gaming. I'm Jax, this is Grand Starbit, let's get into it. Spelunky is a 2D platformer combined with roguelike elements, where your goal is to make your way through various randomly generated caves and tunnels underground in search of treasure. You don't start with much, but as you explore, defeat enemies, use various items, find secrets, and die, and trust me, you will die a lot, you'll very quickly learn that not only is this game unforgiving, but it will keep you playing for hours on end. But how can a game as seemingly simple as this just be so addictive? Well, as you put together all of those simple pieces, the final puzzle they make is a game designed in such a complex, intricate, and nearly perfect way that you never truly feel finished with it. But before we take a deeper look into that, let's take a look at how the game got its start. Spelunky didn't begin like this. It actually began like this. The game was originally released as freeware, or simply free to download, on December 21st, 2008 for Windows PCs. Derek Yu, the game's creator, wanted to combine the traditional 2D platformer with elements of roguelike games at the time, like procedural generation and permadeath. This concept eventually birthed the original Spelunky, in what is now known simply as Spelunky Classic. The game very quickly picked up steam on various forums thanks to its addictive game loop and secrets hidden around every corner. With each level being different from the last and the player having to constantly be on their toes, it was incredibly easy to get hooked into Derek's newest creation, and keep pushing yourself further and further into it. Following this success, Derek was eventually approached by Jonathan Blow, the developer of another early indie title, Braid, which had been recently released on the Xbox 360. John really liked Spelunky and offered to help put Derek in touch with his producers to potentially get the game ported to consoles. It's important to remember that even though indies are abundant on consoles today, in 2009 this was not common at all. But given the success of other games that had the chance to make the jump, such as Castle Crashers, Derek took it when he could, even when he didn't have a team together and potentially faced programming the entire thing himself, despite the fact that he wasn't even really a programmer. He eventually found his programmer and longtime friend Andy Hull, who was coming off the heels of his own game release. Not too long after, composer Eric Serkay, who was running a net label and had offered to compose music for Classic during its development, reapproached Derek once he heard Spelunky was getting a remake. Together, the trio released the new and improved Spelunky HD on July 4th, 2012 for Xbox Live Arcade. It would go on to receive critical acclaim and get several perfect scores, with PC Gamer UK even giving it its Game of the Year award in 2013. It was applauded for its simple yet engaging philosophy of get treasure and don't die, combined with its tight controls and masterful game design. With every level generation being random, so many new and unique enemies, and new items that completely changed how you played the game, it perfectly embodied the spirit of Spelunky Classic while improving on it in every way possible. With even more secrets lurking around every corner, and the game being more difficult than ever, players were almost instantly hooked once again. But how does Spelunky do it? How does Spelunky so expertly draw in and contain its audience's attention? Well, there are a few key points. I've mentioned it a handful of times already, but Spelunky is filled to the brim with secrets, from gold simply hiding in the far corner of a level, to an entire section of the game that requires specific actions in each prior world to even get to. Each part of the game carries its own quirks and secrets to be uncovered. There's the section at the end of the game, like I just mentioned, but there's also numerous other extra levels spread out throughout the game, each with their own unique enemies and special items that can completely change how you approach the levels after. But the best part of all of that is that the game doesn't lead anything to you. It allows you to go off on your own and discover them for yourself. Derek intentionally designed the game to where there are a lot of neat things to find, but not so much that it waters down the experience at all. The game deliberately generates dead ends sometimes to help contrast to when you do actually find something notable while exploring. It makes you want to check out every nook and cranny, so when you do find something cool, it's legitimately cool. And since no two runs are ever the same, you're always going to be on the lookout for something new that you may not have seen before. The balance of secrets and things to find in Spelunky is done in such a finite way that it helps make you feel like this is your own personal journey of discovery. Discovery and level design go hand in hand, and Spelunky's level design is nothing short of brilliant. To the average player, each level is seemingly randomly produced, but there's actually a method to Spelunky's madness. Though procedurally generated in a way, Derek Yu deliberately designed each stage of Spelunky to always have a clear path to the end, regardless of the player's current item count. Every basic level is a 4x4 grid of 16 tiles. The game then uses an algorithm to determine the starting tile, a path through those tiles, and an exit tile. Extra rooms are seamlessly generated around it with varying factors, such as being closed off or containing an item shop to give the player the freedom to explore more of the area if they desire. Each tile is also randomly assigned a template for the different types of rooms you may encounter, both on the path and off. This is where more of the randomly generated factor comes in, because even though there are templates you may become familiar with and recognize as you play more, Spelunky will always change them a bit to help make them feel different. As the level is generated, the game rolls a dice for each tile and decides what it should spawn there, like a monster or an item crate. However, depending on the location of the tile and the layout pre-selected, the dice can be weighted so there aren't lots of the same item or enemy in the same level. The game is designed to indirectly guide you through each level. It doesn't feel like it's holding your hand at all. It feels like you find the path on your own. Spelunky is crafted in such a way to give you options, and so that you would never easily get stuck. You could follow the path straight to the exit, or you can use bombs to blow the level up and get to closed off treasures. Not having set in stone levels forces you to experiment and learn in every run, make hard decisions, and helps further immerse you in the game. The procedurally generated levels help keep the game feeling fresh and alive, no matter how many times you run through them. In a world where holding your hand is extremely prevalent, Spelunky is designed to pull no punches. It wants you to learn on your own. The game relies on you going out of your way to try new things, make mistakes, and learn from them. Spelunky pushes you to make weird decisions like sacrificing different things on an altar or blowing up that grave that looks a little different, because hey, it might just get you something really cool. When you kill a giant spider in the caves and it drops paste and gems, now you feel the need to kill every enemy in case they also give you something useful. If you decide to speedrun your way through a level, the next one is guaranteed to not be a dark level so you can keep going fast. But on the complete opposite side of things, lingering too long at a level summons a ghost that can kill you in one hit. If you go against the grain consistently like this, you can find even more secrets. Passing an item shop and don't have any gold? Well, if you're careful enough, you could just rob it. Have the blood cup but don't have any blood for it? The mummy vomit works just as well. Your health is low and there are very few ways to get it back, which means you have to constantly weigh your own actions. Will you risk taking the damsel to the end of the level for health? Will you ignore them to keep your item? Or maybe you'll juggle your item and the damsel and risk potentially losing both. And surrounding all of these decisions is the fear of death and starting over. But in Spelunky, it's okay to die. In fact, sometimes death isn't hurtful. It can be hilarious. Getting impaled on spikes makes a funny little noise before your body just slowly falls down them in silence. Yetis in the ice caves just toss you across the screen. Sometimes when you spawn into a level, it'll generate in such a way that you just immediately die. Is it frustrating? Absolutely. But it's all part of discovering how this game and its many layers work. Spelunky's strongest magic comes from experimenting, because ultimately, how you learn is all up to you and your choices. At the end of the day, Spelunky is, at its core, about discovery, and that's why it does it so perfectly. It's not necessarily about making it to the end or getting the highest score. It's about that journey you took to get there in the first place, the mistakes you made and learned from, the risks you took to get the ultimate prize. Dying over and over and over again, while yes is incredibly frustrating, ultimately allows you to grow and learn as not just a player, but as a person. Spelunky teaches an important lesson that even I struggle with sometimes. It's okay to try something and fail miserably. What's important is that you're learning, and you get back up no matter what. I love Spelunky. I've played it for years at this point and I have almost 700 hours in it, and to this day not only am I still discovering new things, but the entire community is still thriving and finding big new things as recently as last year. I'll always love this game and I cannot recommend it enough if you haven't played it. Spelunky also taught me that sacrificing my dog can sometimes give me cool shoes, so if you'll excuse me, I have something I need to go do. But before I do that, if you enjoyed this video, I highly recommend the no-clip documentary on video game mysteries and their making of Spelunky video. Derek Yu is, in my opinion, a genius in game design, and I got a lot of my info for this video from those. They're absolutely fantastic. I also gave a very abridged version of how the level design algorithm works, and I highly recommend the Game Maker's Toolkit video on it if you want a little more detail. All three of these videos really inspired me to make this video, and I'll have them linked in the description down below. Once again, I'm Jax. Thanks so much for watching, like and subscribe, and I will see you in a bit.